Welcome to Nomad at Night, starring the one and only Nomad.
Yo, no maniacs. Welcome to the show. This is Nomad at Night. I am your host, Nomad. I got my trusty right next to me, my guy Kids, the Canuck, and our special guest tonight, Brendan Sugrue. I know him from Twitter. Some of you guys might know him from, what's your podcast called, Brendan?
It is the Bear Down Chicago podcast.
That's it.
And also Bears Wire. Now don't let them forget you're an editor or assistant editor. I'm not sure exactly if I'm saying that right, so correct me if need be.
No, you got it. Assistant editor for Bears Wire. I've been doing that for, oh my gosh, I'm going on 6 years now, which is crazy. So yeah, doing a lot and really excited to talk ball with you guys. Really, really appreciate you having me on.
All right. I appreciate it, man. Hey, as the No Maniacs are filing in, man, they come in a little bit late sometimes, and they're getting in here. We'll just have some generalities, man. How's the family? How's life, man? How's everything, man? Forget this football and podcasts and stuff. How are you doing, and how's the fam?
Man, I really appreciate that. Things are good. Things are definitely busy. Of course, football stuff, and then got the day job, things like that are definitely busy. It's this time of year for us. Family's doing good. Got a wife and a dog at home. So I had to work late tonight. And of course I come home, dinner's already ready, which is awesome. And I'm like, hey honey, I'm sorry. I got to talk to these awesome guys about football. So don't be mad at me. But so got to spend some time with her tonight, at least for a little bit before talking to you guys. But no, man, things are good. It's a great time of the year too. Like I just love the fall. Even football aside, just, the time of year, the weather, I love everything pumpkin. I just had myself a pumpkin beer tonight to just, unwind. So things are good. How about you guys?
Wait, hold on. You telling me that we made priority over dinner? She must have made beets. What did she make, beets? What happened, man?
We had some nice air fried salmon with some veggies. It was perfect. Had a nice beer with it, and yeah, it was perfect timing to come on. So no, everything honestly worked out great tonight.
Can't have air fried salmon without some what are those things? Those long. I'm thinking of the vegetable right now, but I can't.
Asparagus.
Asparagus.
That's what he's talking about. You got him.
Yeah, asparagus is good. No asparagus tonight, but she put this nice salmon rub on it. I don't even know what it is. I literally looked at it and I'm like, you put that special rub on it? And she's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, that's perfect. Like this is good. So yeah, we're feeling good tonight.
All right. Well, we know I hate to keep a man waiting that's hungry, man. And I actually apologize. I feel bad.
Oh no, I already ate. I'm good. I already ate. I'm good. I'm feeling
he
good.
Left his fish cold for you. He leave the cold fish for you, bro.
I wasn't gonna pass up dinner.
Right, I was about to say, number one, you can't put that in the microwave. That's at work anyway. You can't put something in the microwave. But hey, man, I appreciate you being here, man. And let's get right to it, man. Let's just not mess around. Give them No Maniacs what they came here for. Let's just think about this on a personal level. Let's think about where you were before all of this happened. And we ended up drafting a quarterback. We made some trades. We ended up with some pieces, man. And here we are 4-2 in the season. Is this where you expected us to be? As a matter of fact, let me just give you the overall question. Where do you think we are as far as a team overall? Do you think we're a serious team out there, or do you think people ought to just back off a little bit?
Well, for that, I would say I think the Bears are a playoff contender. And I think right now with the information that we have, knowing that it is only just week 6, that this team has come on in the last few weeks, this is a team that has found itself. They have found an identity. They're playing together. It's a much smoother operation as well. So they're heading in the right direction at 4-2. It's a loaded division. I'm sure we're going to talk about just how daunting the NFC North is. So the playoffs are still, it's very much in grasp, but at the same time, it's still going to be a battle, and there's a lot of season left to go. But at this point in time, I think you can say the Bears are a playoff contender in that they are they're going to be playing meaningful games in December, something that has been lacking in the last few years. Even last year was kind of a weird mirage where it felt like they were always on the outside looking in. It really feels like going into weeks 16, 17, 18, this team is going to be competing for a playoff spot. But again, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of good opponents coming up that they have to get through first. So I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch, but at the same time, right now, this is a good football team. They are beating the crap out of bad football teams. And that's what good football teams do. I put out a tweet yesterday and it got a little bit of attention because certain fans, mostly NFL fans, but some Bears fans, are just trying to say, well, they just beat the Panthers. They just beat the Jaguars. These are bad teams. Yeah, that's what good teams do. They beat the crap out of bad teams. And congratulations, everybody has now raised expectations for this football team because in the past, I think many people would have just been satisfied with getting a win no matter what. Now it's about having convincing wins because of the offense, because of the quarterback. So, to answer your first question, playoff contender, we'll see where it goes. And then as far as is this where I thought the Bears would be through 6 games? Yes, in a sense where I thought I actually, way back in May, credit to Mason West of Windy City Gridiron. He let me know that him and I were, what's that?
I said, shout out to Dr. Mason West for sure.
Absolutely. So we were on a podcast together and we were picking games during the schedule back in May as soon as they came out. And I had a perfect record so far. I'm 6-0 in terms of picking the wins and losses. So
no way.
I guess I knew something back then. I know. I didn't even know it either.
You had the Rams. You had the Rams as a loss, and the Rams as a win for the Bears, and the Colts as a loss.
Yes, and I did feel good about that. I did switch later on in my my final predictions. I did think the Bears could steal one against the Texans because I didn't buy the hype that they were going to be that good. And I also thought the Bears offense was going to be a little bit further than they actually were. But I felt comfortable about the Colts. I thought that was going to be a weird game. I felt comfortable about the Rams. West Coast teams do not travel well to the East Coast. And I just thought this defense was going to do something with Matthew Stafford. So, yeah, I mean, I really did have a good feeling that this was going to be a fairly hot start. Now we'll see what happens going into this little gauntlet here after the Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, all of that. But I feel good overall.
So what was your prediction for the record for this season? What did you come up with?
Well, initially it was between 10-7 and 11-6. I had 10-7, and then I just decided, you know what? I don't think the Bears are going to lose to Jared Goff and the Lions, in December, because Jared Goff in December isn't very good. We've seen that many times. So I had them at double digits. I had them between that 10 and 11 range, which should be good for a playoff spot. Now I don't think anybody saw the Vikings going 5-0 at this point.
No, nobody did.
They actually, yeah. I was talking a lot of trash, man. I was like, there's no way Sam Darnold's going to be that guy. JJ McCarthy, we'll see how far along he is. Of course, that was before he got hurt.
Hey, hold on for a second, Brendan, because Bear Leachman's got a funny one there. You got to read. He said he wants to know your power.
Let me tell you, it'll go 18, 85, 13, 1. Just pick all the Bears numbers, man. Can't go wrong.
I'm writing them down right now. I'm like, these numbers sound familiar.
Yeah, right. And I promise you guys, I'm not BSing. I'm not trying to say like, oh yeah, I had this from the start. I got super lucky back in May, man. I don't know how that happened.
What's great about the whole thing is really it's going according to plan for me. I had about this many losses this early in the season, and I felt like if they can get to the bye week to 4-2, I think make the progressions that I thought they should be making about this point with a rookie quarterback, new offensive coordinator, installing a similar but not the exact same offense. I felt like, okay, I'm thinking in my head, give them a couple of weeks. Don't get down too much on the rookie because might get ugly the first couple of games. And sure as shit, man, they went out there and it was like the timing was off. And I think that's the key to it right now. I think the game is starting to slow down, and I think credit should be given 110% to what Shane Waldron's done to kind of help the progression along a little bit, get him into situations that are more comfortable for him. Because I kept preaching the first couple of games. You know, we went out there and had that. He had 56, 58 throws out there in one game. And I was understanding why that needed to happen. It's because at first under center, and I've said this, the No Maniacs know I've said this 1,000 times. Under center, he didn't look so comfortable at the beginning of the season. And Shane Waldron detected that and said, you know what, let's get out of that. Let's get into more of the RPO stuff, the empty huddle stuff, and let him be USC Caleb until he gets comfortable with the game speed. To me, that's just the way I saw it through the lenses that I look at the game. I think he knew that, got him comfortable, and then went back to getting under center and running the play action. And I think that made all the world of difference to me, Brendan. I think that's everything in a nutshell as to why Caleb is progressing right now.
I definitely don't disagree with you. And that's a very good point where he is finding, and it's also the communication between the two guys too. I mean, Caleb's got to tell Shane, okay, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm comfortable with. And it sounds like the players have really been able to do that with him. And then Shane himself has to come back and say, all right, we're going to make this comfortable. We're going to work this in with this offense and how you're feeling with it. I think just the other part of it is Caleb himself. He said he was rusty. I mean, you go back to week 1, he was rushing his throws. His feet weren't set. He was looking all over the place. Now, granted, the whole operation was just bad because guys were dropping passes. The offensive line didn't know where they were. It just felt like this team as a whole was still trying to figure out who they were and how they were going to gel together. And slowly but surely, you saw things kind of get checked off. Like, okay, this is getting better. In week 4, the run game started to come alive with DeAndre Swift. In week 1, remember, Cole Kmet was playing like 8 snaps a game versus Gerald Everett just out snapping him like 2-1, 3-1. Now Gerald Everett can barely see the field, and Cole Kmet's catching 2 touchdowns a game. So, and I think to us who have watched Cole Kmet for many years, we're all saying, well, that should have been the plan from the get-go. But Waldron, even though some things kind of started off bad, he has been able to adjust. He's adaptable. And that was one of the biggest selling points for me when the Bears were looking at him. He was my number 1 candidate. I think behind him might have been either Clint Kubiak and Cliff Kingsbury wasn't there. But Shane Waldron definitely was. And it was because of his adaptability with working with different quarterbacks. He did well with Russell Wilson back in 2021. He's worked with a traditional pocket passer in Jared Goff, and he was able to obviously work well with Geno Smith, somebody who can, it's a little bit of a hybrid, still trying to figure out what his career is. So that to me said, hey, this is a guy that is going to be able to not only get the best out of Caleb, but to conform to what his strengths were. And I wasn't necessarily pushing the panic button after week 2 or week 3. I was nervous a little bit because I think we all expected things to move a little bit faster, but I could see the vision through the trees, and it just felt like things were moving a little bit slower than maybe everybody wanted. But my goodness, like just everything that's going on with the offense, the offensive line looked better. The penalties are down. The receivers are exactly where they need to be. And then Caleb, to his credit, is trusting what he's seeing. And I think you mentioned it well, Nomad. The game is slowing down for him because he just does not look, he's unflappable out there, which is crazy to say in just his 6th game.
You know what? You mentioned Cole Kmet, and this is something else that I was doing my best to explain to, from the way I understood what was going on the offense. Early in the season, I felt like everybody was like, where's Cole Kmet? We just paid this dude a ton of money. We need to see some production. And I was trying to tell people, I'm like, early in the season, while he's getting acclimated, and Caleb will need that extra pass pro. And so I didn't expect the tight ends to be heavily involved early in the season. They were going to be used as pass pro. That's what happened in the first 2 or 3 games. And then all of a sudden they're springing out into routes, and he's finding them and things like that. You talk about tight ends. Gerald Everett, I think, has been absent so far, but they didn't pay that guy for nothing. He's going to get folded into that offense eventually. I think they're just at a certain point in the playbook and they're gradually adding a few pages here and there. And eventually, I think Gerald Everett will see his day. I think actually Tyler Scott at some point. And kids and I got into a little thing back and forth about that. But at some point or another, they're going to apply him to the scheme, and they're going to get a little bit more dynamic than they even are right now. So that's just the way I saw the playbook early in the season. They're just getting to levels of it right now.
Yeah, I saw it quite different, and yeah, we did get into a little bit of a thing. I just felt that, you're the new OC, you're coming in, and I don't think Shane Waldron really had a good understanding of his personnel in weeks 1 and week 2, and that's kind of the way that I saw it. I don't believe Gerald Everett was being utilized in a blocking case scenario. He was much more of a pass catching tight end than he is a blocking tight end. And in that respect, I thought they would have utilized Cole Kmet that much more. They just didn't. I found it odd. But I think, and Illinois Jones in the chat kind of lined it up for me earlier on. Like, strangely, I don't think the first 2 weeks really had very much to do with Shane Waldron at all. I know we gave him a lot of heat. I know we gave DeAndre Swift a lot of heat. There's certain Coleman Shelton got a lot of heat, right? There's a lot of fingers being pointed in those first couple of weeks, but I think the finger was pointed at the right person ultimately, and I think that person is Nate Davis. And I have a feeling that come to Jesus moment with Mercedes Lewis, etc. I think they kind of just sat down and said, "Look, man, we got to get Nate the hell out of here." Because at the end of the day, the minute they've talked about this big meeting and much has been speculated about the ramifications of that meeting, but the one result we've seen come out of the meeting is no Nate Davis. Maybe we'll scrape him out there if somebody's hurt, but we'll even put him behind the second string backup, right? So Pryor and Bill Murray are basically ahead of Davis now, and they're performing light years better. All of a sudden the run game works and the personnel usage starts to clean up, right? So I point a lot of this just squarely at the Nate Davis factor. I really have to for the first couple of weeks, and after that, then you get Shane Waldron in his bag. Like, we're seeing cool stuff now, and Berlissimo's going crazy in the chat. Shout out to you, Berlissimo, for being out there in the UK, watching the game live and getting front face and center view of Caleb Williams under center, and he's saying he's looking very, very calm and comfortable in there. He is, right? That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a guy who's getting comfortable at the line of scrimmage, recognizing defenses on his own, and I'm sure you've both seen the clip with Coleman Shelton saying, I think it was Coleman Shelton just saying, effing fire. We got to fire. We got to effing fire. And Caleb's response was, oh, I know, and change stuff up, right? So, like, kudos to Shelton for calling it out. That's what you need him there to do. But kudos to the young rookie quarterback for also recognizing it and making the checks at the line. So we're starting to see all of these things from the kid and from this offense. And I don't even know where to start or end. But long story short, I think everything's going in the right direction. And I think we can all agree about that.
It definitely is. And I'll just jump in on the Nate Davis point. I don't want to say it was all because of that, because he's just one piece of an 11-man personnel. But you can definitely see a change with the type of guys they have next to Coleman Shelton. And I want to give credit. I know, and Berlissimo, obviously credit to him. He was on the Matt Pryor train pretty early. I think also it might have been Robert Schmitz. Maybe this was in a text or a tweet, but I believe he said, just with the personnel that the Bears have with Tevin Jenkins and Matt Pryor anchoring the guards, those are two big guys. And that's Matt Pryor's biggest thing. He's just a big hulking guard. He doesn't have the best athleticism, but he's big. And then Coleman Shelton's a little bit smaller. He kind of sucks on first impact because we've seen him, on his ass a few times, but he's really good about getting downfield. So when you have that combination, I think that's really helping the offensive line gel a lot more too. And guys are just fighting for one another. I know it's inconsequential because of the score at the time, but you love Matt Pryor getting in the face of JC Horn after he's going after Roschon Johnson after that one score. Like he's not afraid to like stick up for his teammates. We know Tevin Jenkins is the same way, and he had a much better game after kind of a lackluster start to the season on Sunday as well. Maybe he had a fire light under him as well because of what we saw from Bill Murray the previous week. So I just think they found a good combination. And I think Nate Davis has played his last game as a Bear because you have to remember Ryan Bates is still on IR. He should be coming back at some point, although there are some concerns about his lingering shoulder issue. Larry Borum is also kind of close to coming back. And while he was the swing tackle before, he can also play guard. So now you suddenly have an influx of pretty good depth on the line. Don't you think Nate Davis, the guy who's been a healthy scratch now this past week and was passed over the week prior, no pun intended, he might be the odd man out because they just seem done with him. And I think they're happy to eat that $10 million cap hit and then just, wash him away for the rest of the year.
Well, you know what? You lead me down a road where I have to go because now we're talking about there's been some movement, and I say movement, I say several moves being made early before this trade deadline. You got Davante Adams going to what am I thinking? The Jets.
The Jets.
Yes.
You got there's what I'm talking about is there's a few teams out there that are folding up tent because they're vulnerable and they know they need to get some assets back for some key players that they have that they know they'll be able to do nothing with. And so if you're Ryan, let's just talk in general and not without getting into specific players. If you're Ryan Poles right now and you're thinking like him, are you a buyer or are you a seller at the trade deadline?
Well, if I can only choose two, I'm a buyer because you've done enough selling the last few years. I mean, it is all about buying. But right at this moment, I don't know if I'm doing anything right now because there are not too many holes on this roster that I think you need to send draft capital. I know Keds is shaking his head. I don't know. But I just think right now, based on what's happening, because there still needs to be maybe some teams kind of shake out with if they're going to keep losing, like where their record is going to be, because with the 7th playoff spot, more people are going to be willing to either stand pat or maybe buy because they think they have a shot at the playoffs. I just look at this team and there is not at least a glaring hole because I think the offensive line has played better. You're finding a combination there. The defensive line has been solid. I think they struck gold with Darrell Taylor. Austin Booker continues to come along. And of course we know about Montez Sweat. So if I'm Ryan Poles, I'm kind of just maybe sitting back and seeing how the chips fall. Now, if an injury happens, God forbid, yes, you definitely need to be on the phone, but I don't think he needs to rush anything yet. Just let the market come to him and see what happens.
Well, you know what? Before you say something, kids, I got to take him here first because now when you're thinking about it, now you got to ask yourself, if you're Ryan Poles, what are you thinking? Do you think this team is a viable playoff contender? If you do. If you don't, then you do exactly what Brendan is saying. But if you do, there could be a potential arms race in the NFC North. What do I mean by that? I mean, whoever gets the arsenal wins the war. And so if you really see this team, and if you're Ryan Poles and you see this team being a serious playoff contender and you see nothing but uptick and surge in your team, the offense is coming together, the quarterback starting to get it, the game slowing down for him, and the defense has not let you down so far. All the ingredients say this is a playoff team. Everything on film tells you that this could be a playoff team. Why wouldn't you get engaged? I know that we don't really have a serious hole, but why wouldn't you get a little bit richer to keep some of your – because we're going to face some of these guys in the NFC North soon. And so the arms race in the NFC North, I think that's – a component that I think every Bears fan should think about when you're giving your opinions about whether or not Poles should spend money or not. I'm just trying to do stuff to keep the damn Lions and the Packers from getting them shit. We may have to get to that. You know what I mean?
That's not crazy, right? So if you're playing defense against the guys in the division, and right now the NFC North, we'll get deeper into it for sure, but NFC North is just a disgusting division. It's a gauntlet that we're about to run through, starting week 10, I believe. You can play defense, but if I'm Ryan Poles, and who threw it into the chat, I think it was KCL. Yeah, KCL, my brother KCL. Hey, you got a whole lot of humanity there that's taking up a lot of space. So if you can do anything with these human beings that he's got listed here, I'm going to put two more.
To me, that's just maintain phase. That's not really being aggressive. That's what I'm trying to ask Brendan. Do you think under those circumstances he should be aggressive just to keep these other teams from getting an advantage over you? That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I totally see. Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. I guess in that standpoint, you would. And I'm also trying to think, as realistically as I can, because I know people are popping off in the chat. And by the way, your chat's awesome. Like, this is, it's great to see this.
Great community, y'all. Shout out to you guys.
Seriously, shout out to all you. It's really, really, really appreciate it. People like, oh, can Myles Garrett get traded? What about Max Crosby? What about, just some of these like superstar, like defensive player of the year caliber guys. And I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, if you're the Browns and maybe Zadarius, I think he's on the Browns still, Zadarius Smith, somebody like that, or like maybe like a lower tier, then you're talking, because then that's something more affordable. You're not selling the farm. You do have that second round pick that you can work with, whether that's the Bears one or the Panthers one. So, depending on if assuming the North is going to keep up just being an absolute gauntlet of a division, in that standpoint, you do want to be aggressive. I guess for me, I kind of want to, and maybe this is just, I'm playing it too safe here. You can definitely call me out. Let's see how this team does against the Commanders, a team that is a little bit of a step up from what the Panthers and Jaguars do. And then if you could, some of those holes then kind of represent themselves, and maybe this team looks a little bit more flawed, it kind of opens the door like, okay, now we're starting to see where we can potentially upgrade from. The trade deadline would still be a week away, so there's still time to make a move. So maybe that's not everybody's cup of tea. I totally get that if you want to strike while the iron's hot, but I guess I just want to see like where the chips fall a little bit first.
So what do you think about what Barrelissimo is saying in there? You get on the phone and get involved in those conversations and drive up the price at least.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Packers did it to the Bears 2 years ago with Chase Claypool, and look at what happened. I mean, granted, I know they were trying to get him still, but yeah, I mean, I would still try to do that and kind of weaken some other teams in terms of draft capital, and maybe potentially push some teams to the AFC. That's kind of where these big trades have happened recently when it comes to that conference. So yeah, I don't mind that.
Well, you got to be in those conversations. Like Barrelissimo was saying, that he just needs to be in those conversations regardless, if only to drive the price up for the other team. So in that respect, Chef Poles will be on the phone wheeling and dealing in some capacity. Will something happen? I don't know, but like I say, I think so, if something does happen, it's for those bigger names we just outlined. You just laid down, or again, to get rid of and clear some room, given some of the folks that are sitting on this roster. There's a few basically healthy scratches on this team that could be moved elsewhere, and I think could garner a decent amount of draft capital, which then could be traded for a bigger name. So keep your eyes peeled.
Let me help the conversation along, because here's when I listen to Brendan, when I listen to Ryan Poles talk, it sounds to me like he's always got his ear to the opportunities, and he's always talking about he's always, when opportunities present themselves, he walks through those doors. And sometimes, every now and again, some undeniable opportunities may present themselves. Now, I'm going to talk about two players in particular. You don't like a Myles Garrett. It is clear that in Cleveland, they're going to end up having to have a fire sale. I don't think anybody in their right minds can see
a fire sale in Cleveland, you say?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry. It's just the most, like every 2 years.
Yeah,
it's never happened before.
Never happened before.
Not only that, I think the Raiders may be approaching that territory as well. So you got Max Crosby. So those are two things. Now let's just talk about those two guys. Are you picking up the phone, and how do you engage in that conversation? Are you trying to get them are you trying to really lowball them, or are you going to try to meet them where they are because you know what kind of value you're getting? What do you think Ryan Poles should do there?
Well, so Ryan Poles said something that really spoke to me when he was doing the deal with the Panthers and Scott Fitterer. And he essentially said that, and maybe I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, like, I could have pushed for more. I could have been greedy, but I also value those relationships when it comes to general managers. And it's also kind of crazy to hear him say that with that trade, because it is like one of the biggest fleeces of all time. Just knowing he thinks he potentially could have gotten more is something. But I don't think he's going to disrespect somebody and just lowball them. But I'm sure he's going to have a conversation and say, what would it take to land a Max Crosby, a Myles Garrett, somebody of that caliber? And Tom Telesco or, they might come back and say, well, we want 3 first-round picks in, 2 seconds. And he may say, all right, I don't feel comfortable doing that because we feel like we are just entering our window and we need to keep those picks. But you have the conversation, you kind of see where the price is, because everybody does have a price. I don't think the whole, like, nobody's untradeable. There's always a price. You just got to see where it is and find it and then work back from that point. So, he is definitely going to have those conversations. We saw in Hard Knocks with the Giants, he's talking about moving up, trying to find Roma Dunze, or earlier in the draft, or potentially a tackle. You see the War Room clips about he's kind of getting antsy trying to move up, and Ian Cunningham's like being his holdback guy, like, no, we got this, hold on. So he, from what I see and from what I hear, he is kind of that crazy guy who will do what it takes. He got that Ryan Pace in him. I don't know if people want to hear that, but thankfully there's a good support system to make sure he doesn't sell the farm for nothing. But I do think
who do you think that team is, though, Brendan? Who do you think, if you had to pick one team with a bunch of assets, who do you think that team is saying to 32 teams, like, everything's on the table? Give me a call.
It has to be Cleveland. I think something could still be salvageable. It has to be Cleveland because of the albatross contract that Deshaun Watson has. I mean, he's untradeable. They are stuck. They are in football hell, and they have to do whatever it takes. What's that?
I'm just saying, how do they continue to pay anybody else on that roster? So Myles Garrett is paid. Fact of the matter is, to re-sign Myles Garrett anytime soon, they don't have the money for that. They were hoping to hit a window here with a viable roster and a viable quarterback. Quarterback didn't turn out. He's well paid. They're in major peril, for lack of a better word.
There is no better time than right now coming to this trade deadline for the assets they have, because right now if I was a GM, you're looking at teams. I'm looking at the other teams out there. There's teams out there that can make a serious playoff run and actually go for it, and we have the assets to help them get there. So your assets are never more valuable than they are right now. You wait until the offseason to try to get rid of some of that, and they're less valuable. And so that's the way I see this thing. And I'm just asking Brendan, do you believe 110% that I think there's 2 guys right now that you can't pass up if you get the opportunity to get them, and I think it's Crosby and Garrett, if you want to put yourself over the top. What do you think about that?
I still think it does depend on the price. I mean, you also have to absorb the contract. The Bears, they are in that mode where the salary cap is doable. It's going to become kind of hectic if you start adding on those big contracts. If Cleveland does ask, and I'm just using both of them as an example, we want 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks, and we want this absolute historic haul, like more than Khalil Mack. I don't know if I do that. I really don't, because I still think that, guys are going to get older. The Bears are going to have to pay guys. They can't keep everybody. The Kyler Gordons, the Jaquan Briskers, TJ Edwards is going to need a new contract at some point if you believe that he's going to be good enough. you still have to fix the O-line as well. Like in terms of, I don't think Matt Pryor, as much as we talked about them, in terms of this year, I don't think that Matt Pryor, Coleman Shelton, and Tevin Jenkins at this point are long-term solutions. So it's good enough right now for that situation. I worry about selling all of those picks when you are going to have to replenish and you are just now entering that window after 6 games. So I guess then that's kind of why I just need to see just a little bit more against these competitive teams. But I completely understand, striking while the iron's hot. I understand the viewpoints. I just personally can't get there right at this point, knowing how much those guys are going to cost.
I just saw Micah Parsons comment. I'm just going to tell whoever said
that.
I'm just going to tell you right now, Creighton, not out of it's got to be out of Jerry Jones's cold dead hands. He ain't giving up.
Oh man,
he ain't giving up yet, man. I'm telling you right now.
Well, you can't pay them all. He's like, it's not a crazy comment. You can't pay them all. Jerry Jones has paid just about everybody except for Micah Parsons, who will be looking for dollars and cents real soon. And things ain't going the right way. So not a crazy guy to bring up. Another name to bring up is Hassan Reddick. And Hassan Reddick would be the easiest scoop up for Ryan Poles right this minute. Wouldn't cost him all that much. Very little by way of contract. Very little by way of capital. He clearly wants nothing to do with the New York Jets. And I think that's where things are with him, right? That's why CAA dumped him. They figured a deal out with the Jets and said, hey, look, let's go sign this thing. And he turned around and he said, I don't want to play for these guys. I don't like these guys. So he fired them, they dropped him as from a representation perspective. And he's now moved on with Drew Rosenhaus, who's gone back to them and said, yeah, we don't want to play for you. So can we look for a trade? And they've given him the opportunity to go and seek a trade. Real talk, anybody of note on the left-hand side, on the opposite side of Montez Sweat, becomes a superstar. Like that's basically how that works. So you don't need to break the bank for a Myles Garrett. Breaking the bank for a Max Crosby is a crazy idea because he just got paid this season and he's making big money. So you're really signing up for a big money contract on that other side. You could probably get by with a decent price tag, low wallet share trade for a Hassan Reddick too.
No, it's a good thought. And they are exploring, like you said, trade talks with Drew Rosenhaus. What kind of shape is he in?
Yeah.
I saw some of the comments. Will he play without the extension? Probably not. That's the whole reason the Jets got into this situation. And you got to see if the number's right. And 3, if he actually hired, I think the story is that he hired goons to kind of shake down like his representation.
Oh, really?
Is that somebody Ryan Poles? I think I could be getting it wrong. So please don't take that as a quote. But
that was hilarious, man.
Oh my God. Well, I think I'm pretty sure that was the case. I wonder about the culture fit because Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are so adamant about culture and they're still dealing with the Nate Davis BS. Yeah, I just wonder if that passes that test for them. But from a football standpoint, if you can get him and he's in shape, oh my God, he'd be a steal and he would definitely produce. There's just a lot of question marks there that I'm not sure the Bears can answer.
Yeah, that's fair.
I got you, man. So all right. Okay. I think we're about 50-50 amongst each other about whether to be buyers or sellers. If you're selling, I think the only and this only makes sense to me, and I'll pass it on to you guys. I think the only I don't think, to be honest with you, I think if we're gonna go and make ourselves contenders for the playoffs, I think Khalil Herbert is off the table because you're going to need him. But if we don't think we're going to be playoff contenders, Khalil Herbert is on the table. And I think an area code coming from Dallas is probably the call that Ryan Poles might be getting right now. What do you think about that, Brendan?
Well, Khalil Herbert was definitely one of the guys I thought was going to get traded before the season. I just really saw a logjam at the running back room. Yeah. I was just thinking about this the other day about like the running back usage, because the thing is Travis Homer's been hurt. They've been inactivating that's not a word, but making Velus Jones inactive every single week. And yet they're still just going with Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift at running back. It's a two-headed horse. And Khalil Herbert's left for just like a kickoff return every once in a while. So even when there are injuries and even when certain guys are getting inactive, he still doesn't have a role. And I think like it just takes one injury for that to change, because you could do a hell of a lot worse than Khalil Herbert. But I just wonder if that's going to change, when it's going to change. He's a great insurance policy. I wouldn't sell him for nothing. Like if somebody's offering you a 7th round pick for Khalil Herbert, I'm holding on to him because he definitely adds value. But if somebody calls Ryan Poles and says, hey, we'll give you a 4th for him, that might be hard to pass up. So I just I'm curious as to why he still hasn't found a role, even with the injuries, because he can be a really good runner. I mean, he scored the first Bears offensive touchdown of the year. I don't know if people remember that, just back in week 2. So
it's Brendan, it's
a very curious case.
It is absolutely, other than you had notions on trading him, right? Other than that, and he somebody's some coach's girlfriend or wife then been messed with. Something's happened on the inside of that building that Khalil Herbert has fell out of favor. There's no way in the world someone falls that far down the totem pole at this point. He was your number 1 back last year, and he wasn't horrible. I think it was a combination of the offensive line play and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, the scheme, all that kind of stuff. I don't know how he falls that low on the totem pole, and we can really excuse it other than they may have some options on the table for him. But I don't see that being a logical move if you're talking about going somewhere. He's going to be needed at some point on this team, don't you think?
I do think so. And again, it's definitely one of those things where if somebody does get hurt, you can bring him in. I think Barlissimo, it's exactly what I was thinking, and a lot of what people know. Khalil Herbert, he doesn't pass block well. He's an average catcher of the ball, basically. Whereas Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift has gotten better at it as well this season. So there is a liability there when you're trying to use him in pass pro and you kind of give up what you're doing. And he is kind of that one-cut runner. DeAndre Swift, again, 2 different running backs here, but Swift is able to make those multiple cuts and move different directions, and he's shown just an awesome ability the last few weeks. And Khalil Herbert's just kind of that one-cut guy. Like he kind of has to go one way or the other. But there is still value there. Like I definitely agree with it. I would like to see him get a little more involvement in the offense, see what he can do. But I would not sell him. I would not trade him for pennies. If somebody blows you out of the water with an offer that you didn't see coming, I think that's perfectly acceptable. You also have to see what Travis Homer's injuries is as well. If he's coming back, when he's coming back. He was put on IR a few weeks ago. I think he might be eligible to come back next week. So that could be something that throws a wrench into things too.
Okay.
I think they keep him.
I know we've kept you longer than we should have, man. But I just got one more question for you, and we can go, man. But okay, so looking at this defense, this is the one thing we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about on the show yet. Now we're looking at a defense I think is definitely top 10, right? We started to fit the run a little bit better this week as opposed to the last couple of weeks. We got gas pretty good on the ground. I look at the game through the defense because I'm a defensive back. But what I see coming, and I've been talking about all off season, and I didn't even see the Darrell Taylor signing coming. We got a gift there. They got a steal in that guy. Number one. Number two, they're about to add another fastball to this mix of an already surging defense. This is what makes it difficult for all the no maniacs in the chat that feel like we should stand pat at the trade deadline because we're good. A lot of people felt like we needed to add that edge rusher, and I was one of them for the most part. But looking at what Darrell Taylor brought to the table, how fast Austin Booker had an impact on the game, and looking at the fact that we've got Jacob Martin in his 21-day window. And if you haven't watched Jacob Martin film and you don't necessarily know what he's going to bring to the table when he's healthy, you're doing yourself a disservice. What do you think about Jacob Martin being added to this already vaunted defense? Another level of pass rushing that's going to come.
Yeah, it's great. And he's definitely going to bring more versatility as well. I think like Flus has found the type of guys that he can move inside and outside, stack on one side or the other. And I think that's what makes it so effective, because if you have Jacob Martin rotating in with Darrell Taylor, Austin Booker, we'll see what his role is after that too. It's going to be interesting to see what that rotation looks like. And then DeMarcus Walker rotating him from the outside to the inside, Javon Dexter, Andrew Billings. It's a very good group. I don't think like it's not an elite front four by any means. I don't want to say that, but like they're effective because of their versatility and how they can play off of each other. And it seems like there's a different guy getting his every week. We saw the Andrew Billings, flying free, against the Panthers, and it was his first sack in like 2 years. So just the ability to kind of create different matchups. And with Eric Washington, I think he deserves a ton of credit coming over as the defensive line coach for Buffalo. He's now the DC, but he has a hand in developing these guys. I very much want to see how Jacob Martin figures into this rotation, because before the Darrell Taylor trade, he was kind of, I guess, lining up as the starting defensive end. And he had some pretty good practices too. I know it was like right before Pats came on, but he was disrupting guys like Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright, I think Matt Pryor when he was playing left tackle back then early in camp. So it's definitely exciting. And I think it's just going to bring another element of versatility for this line to get after passers and then be able to contain the run a little bit better. You're right. I was worried about Tank Bigsby last week, man, especially after his 100-yard gain. And they just made the Jaguars one-dimensional. It was awesome.
Yeah, I had no worries about Tank Bigsby. I knew this week would be the week the Bears figured out how to stop that run. They've been a little bit porous the first couple of weeks, right? As far as the run game is concerned, run defense. They played a great game this weekend, really shut down both of those running backs, which is kind of surprising. If we want to take a step back to Khalil Herbert and where the conversation we were having there, I think the Bears actually wind up keeping Khalil Herbert, and the reason being is they've done nothing to improve his stock, which is the one part of the whole thing that I find odd, right? If you want to improve a player's stock, you play him and you give him the opportunity to do so. Or you trade him before the trade debt, like in the offseason before you get the opportunity. Say again?
Also can get him hurt, and then what does that do to the trade value?
The upside, if you get there's upside there though. So if he gets hurt, re-signing that player goes down. The dollars and cents goes down. So right now, this is why I think they actually are going to keep him, because he has no value by way of trade, or very low value by way of trade. The only thing you can really say is he's a quality back and he's not hurt, but there's tons of running backs out there, right? So next season, when we come to off season and we're looking at maybe doing something at the running back position from a depth perspective, because we clearly have the starter, you may actually re-sign Khalil Herbert to a much more team-friendly deal, given that there's going to be a bunch of other running backs on the market. They're going to outclass Khalil Herbert, specifically because he hasn't had any run this season.
Well, my guy Kid just jacked up. He just jacked up that short for me again. But go ahead, Brendan. You were going to respond to that. I was going to get you out of here, man, with a quick question.
Oh, it's okay. I got a couple minutes. It's good conversation. All right,
man, my bad. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We'll we're all good. I just don't understand why you would re-sign Khalil Herbert when he quite clearly doesn't have a role on this team right now. I mean,
Chief, you need to have a backup. Somebody's got to be back there.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that anywhere. And I think just the fact that he is not even getting any run, like they could potentially draft somebody. There's, like you said, there's other backs. I just feel like because he's not getting any like play and run whatsoever, I just don't think like he's in their long-term plans. And again, still a long season. Who knows what could happen? Maybe something happens and he just, lights the world on fire and the Bears feel like they absolutely have to have him. I just cannot see a situation at this point in time where he's on this team in 2025. And it stinks because he's a nice player. He's a great guy too. He's also, if there's frustration there, I've seen, just some clips and him talking in interviews. He is having as good of an attitude as you can have in that situation. because I'm sure it's so hard for him to not get any carries, but he's going about his business the right way, and he's just waiting for his time to come. And I think he is a good locker room guy. I can't see them actually re-signing him in 2025.
Hell of a pro right now. I'm sure he's got a lot of thoughts that he wants to speak to, and he's got a lot, I'm sure, on his mind. But whatever it is about his personal discipline, whether it's him, family, agent, whatever it is, he's upset. I don't care what nobody says. He's upset. The world just doesn't know about it. And you know, I don't see Khalil Herbert being a Bear next year. You know, I don't think under any circumstances would he come back and accept that role, you know, that he's got right now. I don't think under any circumstances he comes back here. But I do think it's under the circumstances, unless you get something wild for him, I think you keep him now if you want to be a serious contender. You're going to need the depth. But that's just me. But let me ask you this last question before we let you go. Look at the title of the thumbnail there. Do you think this is legit, this offense? Because I'm going to tell you what I think right off the top. I think we're at the infancy stages of what this offense can be based on the information and the amount of playbook Caleb's gotten so far. They're getting him comfortable with a certain section of it. I look at it in like 4 quarters, and I think they're in like a quarter of that playbook, and they're trying to let him get comfortable with that. I think we got a few more sections to go, but I think we're on the verge of having an extremely explosive offense. Am I sounding crazy? Because this is Chicago. We've never really had a truly explosive offense outside of maybe the years Cutler was here with Brandon Marshall. They're pretty explosive then, but it sounds like an oxymoron when you're in Chicago talking about explosive offense, right?
It really does. No, I'm right on the money with you. I think we are on the verge of seeing that. And you can look at the stats. You can look at just how many records and things that Caleb Williams is breaking. I think my favorite one, that Mark Potash was the one who tweeted that the Bears, for the first time since 1956, have scored 5 touchdowns in back-to-back games. I mean, I said it's unbelievable and believable at the same time, but you just see it with the eye test, man. I mean, Caleb is dissecting plays. He's accurate as hell when it comes to finding those tight windows. This is a rookie, by the way, who, no disrespect to quarterbacks previously, but we always talked about they're not throwing those NFL open throws. They're looking for things a little bit easier. And Caleb is just like, Keenan Allen's in a phone booth and he's still firing it right down to him. He's trusting him to make those catches. You could just see it with the eye test and how he's operating the offense. And one thing I'm actually, I've got an article coming out for Bears Wire in a day or so. One thing that really hasn't been talked about is just the operation of the 2-minute offense. The Bears in the last few years, they could not operate the 2-minute offense to save their life. And if they did, they would be lucky to get a field goal out of it. The last 2 games, the Bears got the ball within 2 minutes. They've been able to manage the timeouts well enough, and Caleb drove them down the field for a touchdown. Against the Panthers, it put the game away. And against Jacksonville, it essentially turned the tables because it was a 1-score game, and that kind of let the floodgates go open going into halftime. It is so demoralizing for a team at halftime. We've all felt it. The Bears have been on the receiving end of that so many times when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and other quarterbacks just dicing the defense down the field. So I think that's another element that this Bears offense is getting right. And they still really haven't figured out the deep ball yet. That's the scary thing. I think when Rome Odunze gets going, I know you talked about Nomad with Tyler Scott potentially going as a deep threat. We'll see if that happens, but there are still elements to this offense that could be worked on, and that's scary considering how many points and how many yards they've been putting up. So if this, and assuming this trajectory at least continues with Caleb operating the offense more effectively, everybody gelling, the operation looking better, the running game continuing to get better, and the fact that you are now in a position where it is pick your poison with the receivers, with Moore, Allen, and Odunze all having big games, not to forget Cole Kmet either. This is going to be dangerous. It is already dangerous, but it is going to be even more dangerous and more explosive. So I'm very excited for what this is going to look like the rest of the year. Let's just hope that they can stand up to some of the more upper echelon defenses, because that is going to be that's going to be a battle for sure.
Brendan, you talk about the 2-minute offense. When you said that, it just triggered a thought in my mind. And it took me back to when I was looking at tape of these quarterbacks. We had a whole quarterback show about who we thought was the best and what kind of attributes they came to the table with. Once we realized that we're going to get a quarterback, it became clear. All right, let's focus in on what Caleb's best attributes are. Quick lightning ass release. Number one, that's the first thing that stands out to you. Two is he likes RPO and spread. He likes to get an empty.
Yep.
And he's at his best. This is what I detected on film is when they run sugar huddles and they do tempo. And Shane Waldron's figured that out. I wasn't going to bring that up. I was going to save that to another time you came on here, Brendan. But since you brought this up, I had to bring that up. I think Shane brilliantly figured that out. And why try to fix something that ain't broke? Use it. It's a strength of his. He's got a lightning fast release, and that's an advantage of his in an offense like that with the sugar huddle, and you got the defense on his heels. Let him attack, and it plays to our advantage. And that's really what I'm seeing. Is just I think Shane sees that in him. That's a real strong strength of his, and why not play into it? That's what I'm looking at out there.
I totally agree. And again, it goes back to what we talked about with Shane being adaptable, being coachable as a coach and taking that feedback and willing to adapt what his how he's calling games and how he's working with the personnel that he's got. And sometimes he's like, you know what, once we get into a rhythm, Caleb, go cook, spread everything out and just dice him up. And he's been able to do that. So like I said, I think just, for everybody who was talking early on, like Shane Waldron's the wrong guy. He's not adapting things as well enough, or, the offense isn't picking things up. All you need is time. You shouldn't judge anybody after 2 weeks of football, and look what's happened. And I'm also saying that as well, because the Bears still need to sustain this against good teams, but man, they're going in the right direction, and it's fun for the first time in a long time, guys. Football in Chicago is fun again. And that is, I think that's the most important thing. The season's long. There are tough moments. There are going to be more tough moments, but this is a fun time right now.
Hell of a time to be a Bears fan, and Bearlissimo just hit it right on the head. And all 22, Caleb was surgical in the majority of that game. Man, you can tell that I didn't make this thumbnail and say these words lightly. I do believe we're on the precipice of an extremely explosive offense, and I can see the indicators clear as I can see these guys on the screen, man. And it's exciting to be a Bears fan and to have, can we have a little bit of offense with that defense, sir? When you're sitting at a dinner and you're ordering your, you're ordering your meal. Can I get a little bit of offense with that defense? Oh, you can get a whole freaking lot of it. And that's what I see coming down the line. But Brendan, what a great show, man, for you, man. And I appreciate you coming. And this was fun. That's what we like to do. We like to have real conversations with the fans, man, and have fun doing it, man. This was absolutely fun for me, man. But before you get out of here, let people know what you're doing, what you got coming up. Just give them a piece of what you have on for everybody later on.
Absolutely, man. This is such a fun time. I really do appreciate you guys having me on, and it's great to talk ball with you. Just like you said, fun conversation at a fun time. So it means a lot. Thank you. You can follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Brendan Sugrue. That's Sugrue. Make sure you read my work and all of our staff at thebearswire.com. And then make sure you check out my podcast, the Bear Down Chicago podcast. We go live after every single game Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. Central. So thank you guys again. It was great to, finally meet you and talk with you, Nomad and Keds. Just hope you guys have a great night, and I'm sure hopefully we'll talk soon. This was fun.
Absolutely. The feeling's mutual, man. It was fun. I absolutely enjoyed every second of this, Brendan. Make sure you come on back, man. And let's have fun again. Let's make it a regular thing, man. Let me know if you ever want me to come on one of your shows, I'll be more than willing to do it. But man, thank you for coming and showing up. What a great show, man. Thank you, Brendan, man. You have a good night, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too, done, brother. Real quick, shout out to the you two guys. Thank you. Shout out to the guys in the comments. Seriously, impressive. Love it. The interaction is incredible. So you guys run a hell of a show. Wanted to point that out. So appreciate y'all.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Brendan. By all means, you guys follow Brendan and everything he's doing, Bears Wire, etc. The Bear Down Chicago show. Great friend of our show, and it was awesome to chop it up with him. One little quick little semi-housekeeping note for you guys. Looks like we got ourselves a new – looks like we got ourselves a long snapper, guys. So
yeah, that's right. We did, didn't we?
Yeah, apparently the Chicago Bears have signed Jacob McQuaid. Jacob McQuaid is a former Pro Bowl long snapper, actually twice to the Pro Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams, been with the Rams for quite some time. So the upside is there will be no more Cole Kmet long snapping. And I'm not sure if that's even an upside. Maybe it's a downside because everybody was giving Cole Kmet mad props for pumping in 2 touchdowns and then pumping in potentially two field goals by way of long snaps. So mad love and mad, big ups to Cole Kmet, but big ups to Ryan Poles too for getting that thing taken care of. Yeah. I'm not sure what that really means for Patrick Scales down the road though.
We needed to get that squared up, man. That's too much pressure on Cole. Cole's got enough going on. We had to do that. That had to be a signing that they made, period. One other thing that happened was they put Jamry Chroma back on the roster and they let Travis Bill go. And so we didn't have time to really get that out there in the open, but yeah.
Travis Bill came and left already?
Came and left, dog. He's gone.
Did they cut him or did somebody else
release him just to be able to put Jamry Chroma up? What do I think is going on? I think it's going on. I think Dom Robinson is probably on his way out because I think Jacob Martin is on his way up. And I think they elevated Jamry Chroma to work on his development, and they're going to prioritize Jamry Chroma instead of Dominique Robinson. That's just the way I see it.
It makes perfect sense to me, and I'm just going to add on to what you're saying here a little bit differently. So from an IR perspective, they've also potentially got Ryan Bates and Larry Borum coming back to the team too. Right? So those 3 guys are the 3 guys who
forgot about that. You're right.
Right. You know what I mean? I just wanted to bring that to light before we get out of here. But all 3 of those guys are coming back to this team. There's a whole bunch of healthy scratches out there sitting on the bench. So unfortunately for those healthy scratches, they may have to make some room to bring these guys back onto the active roster. So
I like what AC Adams is saying. Bill could make it back to the PS practice squad when all the smoke clears. God, you're right, man. I would love to see that because I think they continue to develop him. I think they got something. It's just a matter of do they have time and do they have the space and operational ability to be able to do it with the spots that they have, the roster spots they have, the 53-man. Because it's hard to juggle that. You would have to imagine. We talking about 53 dudes and another 16 guys. It's not a lot of space to deal with a bunch of dudes. I mean, with a very small amount of dudes, man. It's hard to do that. So you got to let them go for a little bit, and then if you get an opportunity, you bring them back. That sucks for Travis Bill. But I'm sure walking into this, him being close to Ryan Poles, I'm sure Poles had that sit down with him and say, you know what? We may not be able to keep you right now. And you might end up going to a couple of other teams, but when we have the opportunity, we will bring you back here and continue your development because we believe in what you can do. You have to imagine that had to be a conversation listening to Poles and how he felt about that kid. I believe in that kid. And, it wasn't hard to tell what Poles liked about him.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're laying it on real thick.
Hey, man, he had a lot to like, man. He did. He really did, kids. He did.
I'm messing with you a little bit, but at the end of the day, once you got to, the conversations around the guy were a little bit misleading. It was, we love this guy. He's the best guy. And I'm like, why? What's so great about him? And he seemed to have a really good personality. But at the end of the day, then you actually got the chance to see him on the field. And he's just a little bowling ball out there, just wrecking stuff up. So definitely see what Ryan Poles saw in him. I see what I believe the New England Patriots picked him up, or was it? Sorry, it was Atlanta Falcons, right? I could see why they scooped him up off of our practice squad to try and sneak him in to some action. But I think he only wound up getting a couple of snaps out there in real time. So, if he's not on the team right now, we'll get him back if we can. I do know that there is a soft place in Ryan Poles' heart for our guard Travis Bell, so potentially. But the reality here for me, there's a lot of moving parts here by way of IR, and I don't know, as well as a lot of non-moving parts by way of healthy scratches. So something's got to give. There's going to be some shuffle here over the course of the next few weeks. And one last point that I want to sort of just broach before we get out is with respect to the Justin Fields situation in Pittsburgh. And I probably should have really touched on this a little bit more during Superflex earlier today, but it only occurred to me after. They might bench him just to save draft capital.
That'd be sad, but I could see that happening, man.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So that sixth rounder turns into a fourth.
GMs are freaking diabolical, man.
Yeah.
When it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I did mention to somebody on the Superflex show that we would talk about the O-line, we would talk about Braxton Jones, and the idea that because Ryan Bates is about to be healthy, he's about to be available. And first thing, let's just talk about one at a time. Braxton Jones. Let's talk about him. He is somebody that I think is sufficient for the moment, but in the long term, I know for a fact that we got to draft and maybe even I don't know that we need to trade right now for an offensive tackle, but Lord have mercy, if an opportunity presented itself, if we see ourselves going a distance in the playoffs, and if something comes available that you cannot pass up at left tackle, Ryan Poles needs to pick up that phone and at least, I'm not saying he has to jump on that, kids. What I'm saying is get the phone, listen to the conversation. That's all I'm saying, because I don't think Braxton Jones is a long-term solution.
Okay. So if that's the case, I have to fully agree with what you're saying, right? Definitely work the phones, work your magic. If there's an opportunity or a deal out there that makes sense, by all means, do your due diligence and pull triggers as required. But me personally, Braxton Jones leaves a little bit to be desired at the left tackle position, and that's just me sort of wrapping it up into a nutshell. I wouldn't really be looking to trade out of that position right now, again, unless it was somebody very high caliber on a very decent, respectable deal that works. But I would probably rather just draft his replacement coming. And I was hoping that's what they would have done this past season.
You're a playoff team, and you don't think you can go the distance with Braxton Jones, and some great left tackle comes on the board. Now you're looking at, there's a couple like Cleveland has some nice pieces, dude. That was a lot of people felt like Cleveland was a Super Bowl ready team. They have some nice pieces. We're talking about, he's not an offensive tackle. We're talking about dudes like Wyatt Teller. I don't know how much you pay attention to Bears news, but Wyatt Teller is a guard, probably a center guard or something like that. But very, very, it's an opportunistic time for Ryan Poles. If you really think this team can go a ways, then you entertain these opportunities, even if that's a left tackle. Let's just say next week, the San Francisco 49ers gets their ass kicked. And let's just say their left tackle is on the market. Let's just say you feel like you can do something this year. You think you can get Trent Williams and then still go into the draft and draft a left tackle for the future. Why wouldn't the fuck you listen to that?
So it's, again, I would definitely, I have to agree with the listen. I would always have the conversation and try to negotiate my way into the best possible case scenario. But I would prefer drafting a guy.
You can still draft. You can grab this guy for a year, get a flyer on him for a year. We're talking about.
But then what are we? Hold on. But then what are we talking about in compensation for the team by way of the trade?
You probably end up giving up a 3 or 4.
Okay, then I would do it. You know what I mean? Like it really has to do with the actual trade negotiations we're talking about. If we're talking about a 3rd rounder or 4th rounder potentially, yeah, I would be interested in a conversation like that if I was Ryan Poles. You know, if we're looking at those 2s or those 1st rounders, by all means, man. Sorry, y'all. I would wait for the draft. You know, see how well this
get away with a 5 because this guy was talking about retiring. And so you might be able to get away with a 5 and maybe a player and some cash or something, maybe less than that. But that's if you want to go for the rest of the season and you think you can go a distance and San Francisco they just completely fall apart, which I think they're right on the precipice of that, then he could be something that's real viable, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have a hard time right now looking at stopgap. You know, I have a hard time considering a trade, you know, to trade away draft capital for a stopgap. It would have to be somebody who's going to be around for a while, doing the darn thing for the next couple of years. But even then, I would still default to draft because, you know, you don't really have to pay this guy for the next 4 years, and he'd be right in line with Caleb and the other guys. So, you know, I don't know. I have a hard time. I have a hard time thinking that this year is Super Bowl or bust. So that's just me. I wouldn't make those moves. Next year is Super Bowl or bust to me. So you can get by with everything you need out of the draft.
When you have a good QB, it's never Super Bowl or bust. You have an unlimited Super window as long as you have an unlimited Super Bowl window as long as you have them.
I agree. So you don't have to pull the trigger today. You know what I mean?
What top 10 is saying, like so much of the NFL and football is about momentum. And sometimes you have the momentum and there's other times when you don't. Sometimes the window's open, sometimes it's not. Like you can look at teams and see where that is trending. You can see all you have to do is just get away from history and what you think about what's happened in the past, get away from your trepidation about, oh, this is not the year. We need to wait another year or two. We need to hold on to our draft capital. What if this team can, you know, there's a whole lot of advantage that comes to our way about everything on offense being new to everybody. They don't know what we're hitting them with, and that's to our advantage. That is a bull going downhill with all the big ass horns attacking everybody, and that's something that you want to play into. This could be an opportunity for us. And so I don't know what Ryan Poles is thinking. If I'm him and I'm looking at this team and the way I see the trends going and the way I see this thing developing, I'm saying, fuck that, dude. Let's see what we can do. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, like I said, I can't argue with it because, you know, if any – Ryan Poles will be on the phones, bro. You know what I mean? Like it's almost that simple. He will be on the phones. He will be having these conversations. The question is, will he pull the trigger, and what is, you know, ultimately what type of capital will this cost him? If you're talking a 3, 4, 5, those are conversations he wants to have. Anything south of a 3, and even a 3 is a questionable situation because you can, like, man, we drafted a left tackle in the 4th round last year, right? Like, we can get a left tackle in the 1st or 2nd round next year without much hassle, and or go and grab a free agent edge rusher, and that's my thought. But like by this time next season, this team will be disgusting, regardless as to whether he spends the capital tomorrow, you know, before this trade deadline. The only thing it really helps by way of this trade deadline is if he really feels we can make a deep run. And right now, even I'm a little bit trepidatious about the deep run. I need to see this team destroy good teams. And I think that's what Ryan Poles is looking for next.
I hear you. One last thing to touch on right quick, because somebody asked me to do it, talking about Ryan Bates getting ready to come back onto the roster. And what would that do? Should he replace Shelton and all that? Right now, based on the way things have gone for the last 3 games at least. Based on the last 3 games, if you put that in perspective, at least just putting that in a frame, I think you leave Ryan Bates as a backup right now, unless the offensive line starts leaking from the center. If the offensive line starts leaking from the center, because they intended for Ryan Bates to be the starter. I don't know that everybody knows that, but I'm telling you, they intended for Ryan Bates to be the starting center, and I think he was going to be a damn good one. It was just a matter of stay healthy. I mean, he just did not, something happened, during preseason, and he wasn't able to. And Coleman Shelton, by way of a byproduct of him getting hurt, ended up being there. But unless right now you don't mess with anything, because there's rhythm, there's continuity, they've got something going on. And unless they really start leaking from the center, I think you just keep Ryan Bates as your swing right now. And if you needed him, you got a qualified backup to go in there.
So the thing about all that was really, again, it was Nate Davis's fault. And I'm gonna blame Nate Davis for the beginning of this season period. It's all his fault, but it was Nate Davis's fault because he was not practicing for one reason or the next. Ryan Bates had to take his spot, and then he got hurt in his spot. Right, so he was slated to be that center, never got the opportunity because of Nate Davis for the most part, which allowed Coleman Shelton to come in and play that center position and gain gain the feeling there, gain the love, gain the trust of his teammates. Moving forward, I don't know what you do with the Ryan Bates coming back, but I wouldn't want to suggest that you push him right out there into the center position immediately, because that's just a mistake. You're gonna, you got to have some cohesion, and this line is finally getting a little bit of that with the guys who seem to want to play on the line. So I wouldn't want to disrupt that, and hopefully they don't.
Hey, I hear you. Somebody just asked me that I play Pop Warner. Yes, I play Pop Warner, and I play with people mamas too.
Oh.
For the record, since you want to be an asshole, talk the shit. But with that being said, man, let's get ready to give out some pleasantries before we get out of here.
Rock and roll. We'll start things out, but with a big shout out to Brendan Sugrue. Thanks for joining us one more time. Follow Brendan at the Bears Wire for his take over there, as well as the Bear Down Chicago podcast. Thanks again, Brendan. It was awesome having you around and getting your take. That being said, let's give a little bit of love to those who love us. Big shout out. Big shout out to Oliver Chapman. I was going to say big shout out to Don Burr, but we all know absolutely zero love for Don and those Detroit Lions. Hey, sorry about Hutchinson. I'll give you that one, brother. That shouldn't happen to anybody. That's a pretty serious injury, and hopefully he comes back in full force. But hopefully he comes back in full force the game after we finished beating the Lions twice this season. So that being said, shout out to Joseph Archer. Mad love to Jigsaw out there. Robert Lee, thanks for coming through. Dennis Moody. The Scrolls, my guy, the Scrolls. Mad love to you always, brother. Redbeard, thanks for coming through and chopping it up. AC Adam was with us today. Jay Grizz, got to give you a little bit of extra love, Jay Grizz. Jay Grizz gets love from all the podcasters out there worldwide if it comes to football. Fantasy football, Bears football. I hear Jay Grizz's name all over the place. So I know he's always here rolling with us. I know he's an original Supernova Maniac. So big love to Jay Grizz across the board. Always good to have you. Shout outs to Top 10 Sports. Shout outs to Illinois Jones, Robin LaFleur or Leffler, depending on how you want to pronounce it, Robin. I'm sure you will accept either and or. Who else is out there? Brian Gilmore. Shout out to you. Shout out to Black Diamond, Supernova Maniac, Black Diamond, what it do? We also got the Naj out there. Mad love to the Naj. Mad love to KCL. Barrelissimo was with us from across the pond. Shout out to you, brother. Shout outs to Laz. Who else is out there that I missed? Did I miss anybody out there? Oh, Dante Purify was with us. Scottish Bear. Illinois Jones. You had a pretty packed house today. Starkey Love was with us. Big shouts to you, Starkey. Haven't seen you for a while. FFG Style was holding it down. I think that kind of rounds it out for the most. Oh, Kenny was with us for a little bit. Thanks for coming through, Kenny. Creighton Wilfong was hanging out. A couple of shout outs to you, Creighton. Anybody else that I missed? I think I pretty much ran through the gamut here today. Big love to all you super domaniacs and no maniacs. Thanks for joining us on a quick show with our guy Brendan Sugrue. And mad love to our guy Minister Charles Johnson and Smitty Q and Bear Truth 9. Always mad love to Bear Truth, man. Good to have you guys out there. Hey, Nomad, take us home, boss.
Hey, man, thank everybody. I did everything Kez just said. Thank you to all the No Maniacs and everybody that showed up. Thank you to Brendan Sugrue, man. Appreciated him. Great conversation. It was intense. I think the conversation just had plenty of energy the entire show. And I can't wait for him to come back and we can do that again. But lots of good stuff to look forward to. I know pretty much for certain, pencil in Coach T for Thursday. We're going to do a show with him. Thursday night, hopefully about 8 p.m. Central. I'll verify that time with him, but we should have Coach T this week and maybe one more person that I haven't verified yet, but I won't say that out in the open just yet. But thank you guys again, man. Make sure you hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel and you haven't, please hit the subscribe button, and if you can and you're willing, hit the join and become a member, man, because we can really use some support financially right now to get through some tough stuff we're going through. We got a down website that we need to get back up, and some other stuff that we need to take care of on the business side of what we do over here, man. So anything you can do to help us, it won't hurt. $4.99 ain't gonna kill nobody, but if you don't got it, you don't got it. But if you can afford it, please help us out. But with that being said, let me leave you guys with this thought. If you are a good person, and you there's a difference between a good and a bad person. A good person, you don't have to that person doesn't really have to think about whether or not he's a good or a bad person. He just knows. And and the truth is about life is your deeds follow the words that you say. So I can say a whole lot of stuff on this show. Kez can, and so can Nick and anybody else that comes on this show. But if your deeds don't follow behind the words you say, and so you don't have any weight behind your words, you just talking shit. And so please, if you say you're a good person, you say you do the right thing by people, and you do it all the time, let your deeds follow that. You can't just say it and then your deeds don't follow it. And so that's just what I want to leave you guys with. And just know that if I tell you something, I have 110% intention to back that up with my deeds. And if I don't, that means something happened in the process. But I intend on backing up every damn thing I say on this podcast. Anything that I say to you all, I'll walk it and I'll live it. If I tell you I'm a good person, that's because I have the deeds to back it up. And so that's just what I want to leave you guys with. Just never forget that. To be good in this life, you can't just talk it, you got to walk it. Let your deeds. You hear people say something that somebody might agree with, and they say, indeed, that has meaning to it. Let your deeds back up what you say. And I'll leave you with that. But with that being said, let me leave you with these famous words. If you can think it and you can see it, you can absolutely manifest it. It's just a matter of your mind. Don't be a prisoner of it. Let that shit be the lesson we leave you with tonight. But we are out.